So very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Nirmal Mani Adhikari, sir. To the dignitaries of Amity University, Jharkhand, a very warm welcome to all my colleagues, dear students, and one and all present here. So as we all know that models of communication, they are the simplified representations of the process of communications. And most models try to describe both verbal and non-verbal communication. And it often, makes it very easy to exchange message. Its function is to make the overview a compact of the complex communication process. Now, overall thing is we are understanding that simplicity is the best policy even in the process of communication, and we have so many models which correlate with the communication world, with the practical world, and make it simpler and much more simpler to understand for the students and for various other processes. Today we are understanding about Sadharanikaran, meaning simplification without dilution, and it represents a communication tradition that includes simplification, rasa, sahidaya, and asymmetry, social universalization. So we are gathered here to gain in-depth knowledge about contemporary relevance of Sadharanikaran model of communication from a stalwart in this profession, who is none other than Dr. Nirmal Mani Adhikari. And we can say that this seminar, or you can say this online guest lecture, is just a small step towards fulfilling the vision of our honorable founder, sir, Dr. Ashok Kumar Chauhan, sir, to make each student a success. So we need to take the blessings from our honorable founder, sir. We seek the blessings of our founder, sir, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, sir, who has constantly motivated us through his mission to make each student a success story, always understanding their needs and maintaining cordial relations with all. We have gathered here to start with the process of making each student a success with small such series. This is, we can say, part of the great online guest lecture series Samvad, and this is just a part of it. We will have more such sessions. Now, I take this opportunity to humbly invite our head of the institution to grace the occasion with his words of wisdom. Dr. Sapan Kumar Gupta, sir, kindly address us.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dr. Nirmala Mani Adhikari, sir. We all welcome you with full heart, and thank you, Priya ma'am, and thank you, my colleagues and my dear students. This Samvad is, we planned it in such a way that let this be started in Amity School of Communication, Amity University, Jharkhand 2. We are late, but nevertheless, we are on the right path. That is most important. Every month, we will do this kind of online guest lecture series with some of the other dignitaries. This time we have Nirmala Mani Adhikari, sir. He is a veteran in this particular domain or field of communication, and that to be with languages and the different models. Like this time Sadharanikaran model is he's going to discuss about. I'm sure our students will be highly benefited, motivated, and they will, at the end of this 1 hour show, they will be learning some of the other good things. Without wasting much time, again, I'm thanking everyone, all the faculty members of Amity School of Communication for organizing this kind of wonderful event. And thank you so much, Nirmala sir. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you.
It's an honor for me to introduce our veteran guest, Dr. Nirmal Mani Adhikari. Let me talk about some of his details and achievements. We talk about sir's education. He has done his PhD in communication from Nepal Sanskrit University in 2012, MPhil in English, Pokhara University in 2007, MA in Mass Communication and Journalism, Purvanchal University in 2003. Well, he has a lot of awards and felicitations to his name. Best International Media Researcher 2022, honored by Media Federation of India. CT Excellence Award 2022, Pranjnik Samman 2075, and public felicitation by Magade Village Municipality. Then Tanhan District, Gandaki Province, Nepal 2018. Public felicitation at the Tanhan Mahotsav 2017. Geetal Paristhan Tatha Natak Manch Samman 2014. CSC Samman 2012. Kailali Janapustakale Samman 2011. Utkrishta Yuva Puraskar 2008. Haraf Sahityak Samman 2004, and Shukla Gandaki Samman 2004. So he has innumerable awards and felicitations to his name. Well, if we talk about the fellowships, Bharat Mani Research Fellowship 2012 to 2013 is there. Sancharika Fellowship for Faculty Research 2012, and Chautari Media Fellowship 2010. Swami Vivekanand Paritoshika 2009 awards, prizes, and felicitations are there. Dr. Nirmal Mani Adhikari is an associate professor of media and communication, head of Department of Languages and Mass Communication, chairperson of Media Studies Subject Committee, School of Arts, Kathmandu University, Hatiban, Lalitpur, Nepal. And well, if we start talking about the achievements and much more, it's innumerable. The list is endless. So without taking much more time, our students are also waiting eagerly to listen from sir. I request, sir, you're most welcome to address the students with your precious words, sir.
Thank you, Priyaji. Thanks to MET University, Jharkhand. Namaskar to all. First of all, it's my pleasure to address you regarding the Sadharanikaran mode of communication. Without spending time to other things, I would like to go swiftly to the subject matter. The Sadharanikaran model of communication, which has been abbreviated as SMC, is a representation of communication process from Hindu perspective, or you may say Bharatvarshiya perspective. It was constructed in 2003 while doing my MA/MCJ dissertation, and it was revised in 2010. So it is systematic description in diagrammatic form of a process of attaining mutual understanding, commonness, or oneness among people. This model illustrates how the communicating parties interact in a system. That system would be termed communication in the Western context, and in our context, we can say Sadharanikaran. So it illustrates, it systematically describes how the communicating parties interact in a system, that is the process of Sadharanikaran for the attainment of Swaridayata. So the term Swaridayata is the core concept upon which the meaning of Sadharanikaran resides. It is the state of common orientation, commonality, mutual understanding, or oneness. Communicating parties become Swaridayas with the completion of the process of Sadharanikaran. In this light, the Sadharanikaran model of communication envisions communication for communion. Bharata's Natya Shastra and Bhartrihari's Vakyapadiya are two principal sources for the model. This model has been constructed by drawing on insights from these classic treatises. Most of the concepts drawn on, for example, Sadharanikaran, Swaridayata, Rasaswadan, Sakshatkara, etc., are formal concepts that are formally established on Sanskrit poetics, aesthetics, and linguistics, as well as other disciplines of Hindu religious philosophical knowledge system. These concepts are the foundations on which the Sadharanikaran model of communication is established. So this model has been constructed consisting of different elements. As we know, whenever we say communication process, then we consider it as interrelationship of different elements. To be a process, there shall be more than one element, and they should be interrelated in a specific way, and their interrelation and interaction shall have some outcome. For instance, in Aristotle's model, the outcome is persuasion. Here, in the case of Sadharanikaran model of communication, the outcome is attainment of Saridayata. So, different elements in this process are Saridayas, who are the communicating parties, which have been distinguished as sender and senders and receivers in other models. But here, due to its very nature, since they have to achieve oneness or commonality, they are termed by single terminology, common terminology, that is Saridaya. Yes. So Saridayas are two communicating parties. Then Bhava, which can be translated as moods or emotions, and Rasa, which can be translated as sentiments or feelings that are innate to Saridayas. Then there is another element, Abhivanjana. Abhivanjana is expression or encoding, translating the thoughts, emotions, feelings into codes, let us say, that are perceived by the communicating parties. That has to be shared. Otherwise, it would be meaningless for another communicating party. Then, when the feeling, for example, is translated into codes, then it becomes sandesha, which is equivalent to message or information. Then the term for channel or medium in Sanskrit is sarani. Okay, so sarani is another element in the Sadharanikaran model of communication. Then there is the process of rasaswadana, which is a process of wide range, including receiving, decoding, and interpreting the message, and finally achieving the rasa. That is oneness of bhava and rasa. What is sthai bhava in the capacity of sender, that becomes rasa in the capacity of receiver. Then there are dosas. Dosas are obviously barriers or noises in the communication process. And then we also have sandarbha, which is Sanskrit word equivalent to the context. And finally, there is one more element which refers to the process of feedback. Pratikriya is that element. So while constructing this communication model, as I told earlier, I have drawn on Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra and Bhartrihari's Vakya Pariya. So most of the non-verbal aspects and the overall theoretical framework that is taken from Bharata Muni's Natya Shastra, and to describe the verbal communication process, Bhartrihari's Vakya Padiya has been drawn on. So taking insights from these two great sources, these elements were constructed, and then according to the theoretical framework, according to the, let us say, philosophical framework of Vedanta, they are interrelated in a specific way, and their interrelationship is analyzed. So Saridayata is the core concept upon which the meaning of Sadharanikaran resides, that I already told. It is the state of common orientation, commonality, or oneness. Communicating parties become Saridayas with the completion of the process. In a society that has asymmetrical relationships between communicating parties, we can see our society where we have diversity of castes, ethnic groups, languages, even sects, yeah, what is called sampradayas, and so many cultural practices, rituals, rites, and so on. So it is really a challenging thing to establish orientation of communication in such diverse and sometimes conflicting situation. But by analyzing the civilizational practices for communication, it is established that it is only due to Saridayata the two-way communication and mutual understanding is possible. So there is one sort of cultural preparedness that prepares a person from this civilization to interact to another person from the same civilization, but maybe of different language background, maybe of different ethnic group, maybe of different geographical location, and so on. Thus, communicating parties can attain Saridayata irrespective of complex hierarchies of castes, languages, cultures, and religious practices, and the communication process qualifies to be considered as Sadharanikaran. So here, Sadharanikaran as a concept or theory should not be confused with the Sadharanikaran model. The former, which is one of the significant theories in Sanskrit poetics, has its root in Natya Shastra and is identified with Bhattanayaka. So it was Bhattanayaka who first theorized Sadharanikaran. Sometimes you may find some writers writing that Sadharanikaran came from Natya Shastra. So in that case, you can instantly know that the writer has not read Natya Shastra at all. Okay, so in Natya Shastra, Sadharanikaran has not been mentioned. Sadharanikaran was later developed by Bhattanayaka while explaining the Rasa Sutra. So the root is Rasa Sutra. Rasa Sutra is given in Natya Shastra, and that Rasa Sutra has been analyzed from different perspectives. Various acharyas have come up with different theories. One of them is Bhattanayaka, who came up with the theory of Sadharanikaran, which he drew from Mimamsa philosophy. So here, the overall theoretical framework, as I mentioned earlier, was Vedanta. However, the basic concepts have come from Mimamsa, and this is quite natural because in Vedic philosophical tradition, Mimamsa proper is called Purva Mimamsa, and the Vedanta philosophy is called Uttara Mimamsa, denoting that these two together form a complete Shastra. Okay, so these are Mimamsas, one Purva Mimamsa and another Uttar Mimamsa. So Purva Mimamsa contributes by giving the concept of Bhojakatva and Bhavakatva, and that is ultimately developed into the Bhavana theory. That means Sadharanikaran theory in this context. And for theoretical, for philosophical framework, Vedanta is there. And not only Natya Shastra, we can see Vedanta in Bhartrihari's Vakyapadiya as well. So Sabda Brahman is the ultimate reality in the context of Bhartrihari's Vakyapadiya. So based on this Sadharanikaran theory, I constructed and developed a communication model called Sadharanikaran model of communication. In a nutshell, it's very elaborated discussion. If you see, some of you might have already seen this book. This is Theory and Practice of Communication, Bharat Muni, which is published by Makhanlal Chaturvedi, National University of Journalism and Communication, that I prepared under the Bharat Muni Chair Research Fellowship that Priyaji mentioned while introducing me. So this is 400 plus pages a book. So it's a lengthy process to discuss Sadharanikaran model in detail, but I will try to make it very brief. So if we see the Sadharanikaran model of communication, the structure of the model is non-linear. It incorporates the notion of two-way communication process, resulting in mutual understanding of the communicating parties. Thus, it is free from the limitations of linear models of communication. For instance, there are so many communication models, SMCRE model, sometimes more developed as Laswell's model, then earlier Aristotle's model, then Wesley Macklin's model, and so on. If you see these linear communication, models, then obviously due to their linear worldview, there are limitations that they cannot represent the communication process as a whole. So this is non-linear. It incorporates the two-way communication in a way, total communication. Yeah, holistic approach to communication. Because if you see Natya Shastra, Bharat Muni has extensively discussed not only on the verbal aspects, but non-verbal aspects in such a great detail that you will find lots of discussions just to describe how these eyes communicate. Okay, so very elaborated discussion. So it has holistic approach. The model illustrates how successful communication is possible in Hindu society, where complex hierarchies of castes, languages, cultures, and religious practices are prevalent. And by virtue of this, it has renewed relevance in the contemporary world. Yeah, today's theme is concerned with this. If we see the European nations, for instance, they were designed as per the nation state theory. Yeah, giving state to minimum possible unit. For instance, France for French people, Britain for British people, yeah, Denmark for Danish people, like that. So it was ethnicity based, sometimes even the religious denominations. If people are of the same ethnic group and same religious group, and they differ in denominations, for instance, Catholic and Protestant, they had two different nations for them. So exclusivist idea was there. But in our case, even we take example of very ancient text, for instance, Satapatha Brahmana or Aitareya Brahmana, yeah, our society was heterogeneous. There was heterogeneity, diversity of, yeah, caste, ethnic groups, religious practices, languages, customs, cultures, and so on. So our society was constructed in a different way, and their society was constructed in a different way. But if you take today's example, for instance, in London, people of, let us say, more than 200 ethnic groups have to live together there. And people of hundreds of language groups, they have to be there. So they cannot give state to every nation as per their standard now. Okay, so people of diverse backgrounds should stay together, should communicate, should form a coherent society. And here is our strength. We have been doing this since millennia, maybe 5,000 years, maybe 10,000 years or more. So here is something that the West, even the African tribal societies, now they are mixing together. They can learn from our society, like Nepal, like India. Yeah, in case of China, you can see it is said that 94% of people are from the same ethnic group, Han ethnic group. Okay, so less diversity you can see there. But in case of Nepal and India, we have much more diversity, and we have that practice. We can prepare our people culturally to communicate with other people which are different from them in many dimensions. So the changing nature, mass migration, connectedness, yeah, the concept of global village, all these things, and concepts shifting from nation state to state nation, yeah, it demands new communication model, which can be the Sadharanikaran model of communication. So there is one quality that has been termed as Saridayata, that enables us to be able to communicate with people from other backgrounds than ours. So then the interrelationship between the communicating parties is of crucial importance in Sadharanikaran model of communication. Here, not the cause of the relationship, but the relationship itself is significant. For instance, in our case, take example of marriage. Okay, marriage is not just a social contract here. The marriage is institution, and it itself has been considered sacred. Okay, like that, family. family is not just of a group of members, okay, group of siblings or like that. It is an institution which has, let us say, wide ranging importance in the society. Okay, so this is grihastha ashram, having importance in our religion, in our culture, in our, let us say, custom, and so on. Its sacredness shows that in our communication practices, not only the purpose of communication, but being in the communication process together itself is very important. That is here the Guru Shishya relationship also can be taken as an example. And unlike in case of most communication theories and models from the West, this does not emphasize on dominance by the sender. For instance, you might have discussed, yeah, Aristotle's model of communication, or all the models under transmission approach. Okay, what happens there? The whole communication process is dominated by the sender. The whole communication process is in fact conducted in order to achieve the goal set by the sender. So to send some communication and to influence the people, and at its height, you know the bullet theory or hypodermic needle theory, yeah, which considered the media is very much powerful, having power to influence instantly, and it was irresistible. Okay, the receivers were treated just like a target in the shooting. Okay, so but later on they also realized, when there was diversity of media, then further research were conducted, then they realized that that was not the condition. Okay, but here so they shifted from transmission approach to ritual approach, then publicity approach, to finally, yeah, reception approach. And sometimes people may confuse this model with let us say ritual approach or reception approach, but there is a vast difference. Okay, in a ritual approach, they take the commonality is taken for granted. Okay, like Sunday mass of theirs, where people of same denomination gather together, so obviously there is commonality, and the challenge is just to sustain the equilibrium. Okay, but here in our case, that is different. In our case, there is diversity, there is heterogeneity, sometimes even conflict, yeah, and vast difference may be visible there. But the cultural preparedness finally enables us to establish something in common, and this is how people from, let us say, Uttarakhand and Karnataka, yeah, Kashmir, and let us say Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh and Punjab, they feel some sort of togetherness in case of India. Or let us move beyond that. If people from Nepal and India meet together, they are of two different countries, yeah, two different sovereign states, but they feel togetherness. Why? There is that cultural preparedness, and this cultural preparedness is now required at the global level, because people have migrated from here to there, and if you take all the 5 escapes of Arjuna Appadurai, yeah, you can see connectedness in all dimensions, and that obviously requires a holistic communication process. So it shows that encoding and decoding are the most important things, or we may say decisive junctures. This has been realized in the Western context as well, when they have reached to the reception approach. Okay, here now they have realized that, but with this thing we can see even in Vakyapadiya, in Natya Shastra. Vakyapadiya is at least 2000 years old, and Natya Shastra, we don't know how old it is, but it is for certain it is older than Mahabharata and Ramayana. It is after Veda, but before Ramayana and Mahabharata. Such an old text also incorporates this concept, which has been rediscovered by the Western scholars very recently, we may say. Then it shows it shows that here is emphasis on internal or intrapersonal communication aspect more. Okay, to be able to communicate with others, first you need to understand yourself. You need to communicate, yeah, within you. That is why there are 4 levels of words. For example, this is the outer word. This is Baikari. But if you see, it has Chatwari Vak. It is told in Rig Veda itself. Para Pasyanti Madhyama Baikari. And since it has 4 layers of origination, then as a receiving party, you also need to process it through these four layers: Sravana, Manana, Nidhi, Dhyasana, and Sakshatkara. So you can see much emphasis is on the internal aspect. So that is why we have meditation, we have, yeah, samadhi, and all these things. Then with the provision of context, that sandarbha, it considers all the differences, and considers how important role culture and other things play. Then another thing very important is, it shows that the scope of communication has to be much broader in our context, because here we consider three-dimensional word: आदि भौतिक, आदि दैविक, आध्यात्मिक, or you may say स्थूल, सूक्ष्म, and karan. So if communication has to be perfect, then it has to give solution to all these 3 dimensions. That is why we have in Sadharanikaran model of communication, this rasa swadhana has all the 3 layers. In the physical layer, rasa swadhana involves understanding the message sent by the receiver. Yeah, in the mental world, feeling of oneness, at least friendly feeling. Yeah, and understanding the joys as well as sorrows of the communicating parties. And finally, in our concept, it is called raso vaisaha in Taittiriya Upanishad. That means just like the physical things can be released, just like the feelings, emotions, bhavas can be released, likewise the Paramatma, Parabrahman, the absolute reality also can be released. And in that sense, raso vaisaha becomes aham brahmasmi. Yeah. So the goal of communication, the final thing I would like to mention is, the goal of communication here is much broader. When you say communication for, let us say, persuasion, then the goal is just to persuade another person. When you say communication is a transfer of message from one, sending and receiving, yeah, sending from one point, then receiving from another point. And if you say communication for sharing, just information sharing would be sufficient. But here, as we from the Bharatvarshiya civilization believe that we have 4 goals in our life: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. If communication has to represent our reality, obviously it has to give ways how to attain all of these purusarthas. Yeah. So this model also shows how all these are relevant, and since it addresses communication in physical context, communication in mental context, as well as communication in the spiritual context, it can claim, yeah, representing Hindu society or Vedic philosophy. So in a nutshell, I presented about Sadharanikaran model of communication, and its contemporary relevance has increased, I said, because the changing dynamics of the contemporary global society is now becoming just like we had since millennia. So we developed this practice. This practice was theorized by Bhattanayaka, and the model was constructed by myself, but it is in the society. It is a living reality of our society, and the global society is also heading toward the similar characteristics we had been enjoying. So its relevance is ever increasing. Thank you.
Sir, it was a tremendous experience to hear from you about the Sadharanikaran model and how well you correlated with the present scenario. Well, the students, if you have any queries, any questions, please feel free to ask, sir. You read the models in book, but if you have any queries, now sir is here, he's live here. We can ask some questions, something if you want to research about anything which strikes to your mind, you can ask. Well, one question strikes to my mind, sir. If you can answer to my query, like nowadays, what happens? We in India and many other places, Sanskrit, this language which held a huge importance earlier, it has been almost forgotten. And in many of the news channels, I mean, not many, but none of the news channels have this trend to portray news in Sanskrit, or maybe the sign and symbol language which is meant for the special people. So what do you have to say about this?
Okay.
Only in Doordarshan we can see this. Can
Okay.
Sadharanikaran or simplification be correlated to it? What else can be done, sir, to promote it, or maybe we can bring back that?
Okay. I will first answer the later part. Okay. To promote Sadharanikaran model, you do not actually need to know Sanskrit. Okay. If you know, it would be better. But Sadharanikaran can be practiced in our vernacular languages in any context, even in the digital arena. Okay. But Sadharanikaran model, obviously it has been constructed by drawing on Sanskrit treaties. So the scholars on it, they obviously need to know about that. But to practice this, you need not know. Even people from, let us say, other backgrounds in Brazil or in the US or in China or Japan, they have been reading. In Indonesia, they have hugely translated my work into Indonesian language. So you can do that. For the first part, if you would have asked the same question 5 years or 10 years ago, it would be true. But currently, there is resurgence of Sanskrit. There is resurgence of, let us say, yoga. There is resurgence of Ayurveda. So people, the number of gurukulas in Nepal and India is actually higher than ever if you consider past 100 years. Okay. In most ancient time, there might be gurukula in every home. That is another thing. Yeah, we have read that. But if you take 100 years or even 200 years, the number of gurukulas are ever increasing today. Okay, people practicing yoga, people practicing Ayurveda, that is all-time high in the recorded history. Okay, so there is a resurgence. People, even those who do not understand Sanskrit, they are trying to get the insights from translations. Okay, so the number of researchers, if you see podcasts, if you see YouTube videos, if you see, let us say, blogs, if you see printed books, journal articles, you will find that the number of works in this field is ever increasing. So I see a complete resurgence. And for instance, such initiative, if I would be a communication theorist in 1950s, 60s, even 70s, yeah, people would not have paid any attention to me. Okay, that was the era of westernization. West is the best. Psych was there. Coca-Colanization, McDonaldization was there. Okay, but after 1990 was the peak of globalization. After that, we say post-globalization, and especially after, let us say, in recent 1 decade or so, much emphasis is on indigenous insights, yeah, multiculturalism, and very recently we have been talking about reorientation. So there is a conducive environment for all these. Earlier universities from Nepal and India, what they did, they just copied the curricula from the West, and that was taught. When we were students, yeah, there was no reference to Sadharanikaran model or any other thing from our civilization. But in India, you can see even the UGC asks about Sadharanikaran model, and sometimes even my name is mentioned in UGC NET examination. Okay, so many universities in India, I think as many as 100 universities, I might have delivered lecture on Sadharanikaran model of communication. This signifies that there is a resurgence, and we need to be hopeful. we need to contribute for this.
Sir, there's a question from one student as well, and our Sudhir sir, HOD sir also raised his hand. He wanted to talk about something.
Okay, Sadharanikaran theory is even described as a spiritual process, or can you explain how is it so? Okay, we need to understand what spiritualism is. It can be described in different ways, but in our context, being Adhyatmika is going beyond Sthul and Sushma, going beyond this body and the mind. Okay, so the concept of Atma, Paramatma, all these things, Moksha, or in Buddhist context, there is concept of Nirvana, all these things. So to be spiritual is not to be limited with artha and kama only. And the dharma has to teach about artha, kama as well as moksha. So if we think about beyond this life, if we think about the inherent relationship between humans and other beings, yeah, even non-living things, yeah, if we talk about interrelationship between matter and spirit, Prakriti and Purush in our context, yeah, then if you think like this, all these are spiritual processes. And Sadharanikaran model of communication, it obviously starts with the individuals. Okay, so the physical aspect is there, the sharing of information is obviously there. Then it discusses about the society, how this social harmony, yeah, empathy is there, all this oneness is there. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, it also discusses how one can communicate with the God. Let us say, I put it in the simplest form. Yeah, it also describes that. Yeah, and finally, attainment of moksha is also described through this communication process. That is why it is called spiritual process as well. But not only spiritual, it deals all of the three dimensions: physical, mental, as well as spiritual.
Sir, I request now our other
One
faculty
question is from,
members, if they have any question.
yes, one question from Aryan. Yeah, Aryan want to ask one question.
Yes, Aryan.
Sir, first of all, very good morning, sir. I'm glad that I'm sitting in front of you and asking a question.
Okay, you are welcome.
Thank you so much, sir. So my question, can I ask it in Hindi if you are comfortable?
Yeah.
Sir,
हिंदी में भी बोल सकते हैं.
सर, मेरा सवाल ये है कि हम कोई भी स्टडी या फिर रिसर्च करते हैं तो इंडिया में वो चीज बहुत पहले हो चुका है, चाहे हम लोग बात करें एस्ट्रोनॉमी की या फिर बात करें एरोडायनामिक्स की या फिर मल्टीवर्स की, इंडिया में बहुत पहले ये सब के बारे में हम लोग के ग्रंथ में लिखा हुआ है. तो जहां सवाल आता है कि किसी भी कम्युनिकेशंस का या फिर कोई भी रिसर्च का, तो सबसे पहले दिमाग में साइंटिस्ट इंडिया के नहीं आते, बाहर के आते हैं. तो अगर देखा जाए कि यहाँ पे हम लोग कम्युनिकेशन का साधारणीकरण का देखा जाए तो सबसे पहले ये नहीं आता साधारणीकरण क्या है, सबसे पहले ये आता है कि ऑसगुड मॉडल क्या था, लास्वेल मॉडल क्या था, डान सेल्किल मॉडल क्या था. तो कहीं ना कहीं हम लोग क्या लैग बिहाइंड कर रहे हैं कि हम लोग अपने खुद के जो भी नॉलेज है उसको अच्छे से एडवर्टाइज नहीं कर पा रहे हैं या फिर खुद अडेप्ट नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. क्योंकि हम लोग की जो एनसीईआरटी बुक है उसमें हमारे जो भी साइंटिस्ट का नाम लिखा हुआ है नहीं है, जो भी है सब बाहर के ही हैं. मैथ्स में इतने सारा जितने भी यूनिवर्सिटीज के बुक्स हैं उसमें भी बाहर के, इंडिया के कुछ नहीं है. और साधारणीकरण इतना अच्छा मॉडल है, कोई भी फ्लॉ नहीं है, फ्लॉलेस है, फिर भी ये इतना फेमस नहीं.
इसमें क्या है कि इसमें एक ऐतिहासिक संदर्भ को हमें समझना चाहिए. ये जो कम्युनिकेशन जो संचार करना, ये तो हम कब से कर रहे हैं किसी को पता नहीं, सृष्टि से ही हम कर रहे हैं. लेकिन उसको अभ्यास करना और उसकी शास्त्र बनाना, उसके डिसिप्लिन, उसका स्टडी करना, ये अलग बात है. और हमारे यहाँ क्या हुआ कि काव्य शास्त्र में, नाट्य शास्त्र में, सौंदर्य शास्त्र में इसके बारे में चिंतन हुआ. लेकिन कम्युनिकेशन करके बैचलर ऑफ आर्ट्स इन कम्युनिकेशन, मास्टर्स इन कम्युनिकेशन, पीएचडी इन कम्युनिकेशन और मीडिया स्टडीज और मास कम्युनिकेशन, ये सब प्रारंभ हुआ अमेरिका में द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध के उपरांत. उन्होंने किया और ऑब्वियसली उन्होंने किया तो अपनी सभ्यता से उन्होंने ले लिया. तो आधुनिक चीजें जो भी थे उन्होंने अमेरिका से लिया और प्राचीन चीजों के लिए वो चले गए यूरोप में, क्योंकि उनके जो रूट्स हैं, उनके जो मूल है वहां थे. तो और उसी वक्त क्या हुआ था कि कई देश स्वतंत्र हो गए और एटलीस्ट पहले से जो स्वतंत्र थे वो भी ज्यादा वैश्विक परिवेश में अब वो जुड़ने लगे और वहाँ संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ और विश्व बैंक, इंटरनेशनल मॉनेटरी फाउंडेशन, IMF वगैरह ये संस्था जो बने, इन्होंने प्लान्ड डेवलपमेंट, योजनाबद्ध विकास की अवधारणा इन्होंने प्रवर्धन किया। तो क्या हुआ कि योजनाबद्ध प्लान डेवलपमेंट सीखने के लिए, फॉर एग्जांपल मैं ले रहा हूं, इंडिया से कुछ लोग चयनित करके अमेरिका में भेजे गए। तो वो वहां अमेरिका में वो ट्रेनिंग्स ले रहे थे, अमेरिका की यूनिवर्सिटी में वो पढ़ रहे थे। उन्होंने वहां मास्टर्स किया, PhD किया और फिर बाद में वो चूंकि गवर्नमेंट स्कॉलरशिप में गए थे, उन्हें यहाँ वापस आना था। तो आते वक्त उन्होंने जो सिलेबस उनको दिया गया था, जो करिकुलम उनको दिया गया था, वो भी वो फोटोकॉपी करके ले आए और जो जितने भी बुक्स थे वो ले आए। और यहाँ इंडिया में आने के बाद इंडिया की यूनिवर्सिटी में उनको फिर जब जर्नलिज्म की कोर्स, मास कम्युनिकेशन कहा जाए और कुछ भी कहा जाए, प्रारंभ करना था, तो उन्होंने अपनी दिमाग को, अपनी मस्तिष्क को ज्यादा परिश्रम करने के लिए प्रिपेयर नहीं किया। उन्होंने क्या किया, जो फोटोकॉपी उनके साथ में था उसको यहाँ इम्प्लीमेंट कर दिया। तो इस हिसाब से यहाँ न सिर्फ कम्युनिकेशन में, अदर सब्जेक्ट्स में भी उन्होंने सोचने की इतनी जहमत नहीं उठाई, इतना परिश्रम नहीं किया। जो वहां से उन्होंने पाया वही यहाँ लगा दिया। और इसमें देखिए विडंबना यह है कि जो अमेरिका में वो लोग उसमें 1980 से ही इसमें परिवर्तन करने के लिए नॉन वेस्टर्न इनसाइट्स चाहिए, क्या करें, क्या किया जाए, वो इतने रिसर्च करने की वो प्रयत्न कर रहे थे। लेकिन यहाँ लोग इंडिया में, चाइना में, नेपाल में, श्रीलंका में, बांग्लादेश में, पाकिस्तान में और भी जितने देश है, वो वहां से जो फोटोकॉपी करके वो भी आउटडेटेड हो चुका था। जो चीज भी था वही पढ़ा रहे थे, अब भी बहुत ज्यादा पढ़ा रहे हैं। फिर भी मैं सर्च करता हूं कभी कभी, तो फॉर इंस्टेंस इंडियन यूनिवर्सिटी के संदर्भ में मैं देखता हूं कि बहुत सारे यूनिवर्सिटीज में अभी साधारणीकरण मॉडल है, कोई ढंग से वो कर रहे हैं, जो प्रॉपर साइटेशन है, जैसे मेरे बुक हुए, आर्टिकल हुए, उसकी लिंक भी वो दे रहे हैं। कई तो क्या कर रहे हैं कि सारे माल वहां से उड़ा रहे हैं और उनको ढंग से रेफरेंस और साइटेशन देने की उनकी अकल भी नहीं है। कई लोगों को मैंने स्वयं लिखा भी है और उन्होंने करेक्ट भी किया है। तो फिर इंडिया में अभी कई लोग रिसर्च भी कर रहे हैं कि ये किया जाए, लेकिन उसमें थोड़ी कमी ये है कि जो स्टैंडर्ड रिसर्च प्रोसीडियर है और जो क्वालिटी एक तरह की, इसमें भी हालांकि वेस्टर्नर्स की उनकी हाली मुहाली है, फिर भी मान्य जर्नल्स वहीं से निकलते हैं, इंसाइक्लोपीडिया वगैरह वगैरह, और उस स्टैंडर्ड की प्रोडक्शन नहीं हो पा रहा है। जो हमने साधारणीकरण मॉडल किया पहले 2003 में किया, 2010 से ये इंटरनेशनल पब्लिकेशन में गया और 2016 आते आते इनको इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिकेशन एसोसिएशन ने कम्युनिकेशन थ्योरी की तरह एक्सेप्ट किया और इंटरनेशनल इंसाइक्लोपीडिया में भी इसको समाविष्ट किया और कई यूनिवर्सिटीज अभी इनको अपने करिकुलम में रख रहे हैं। तो वो बायस तो है, लेकिन ज्यादा जो इन्फेरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स है इधर है। अगर इधर से इन्फेरिटी कॉम्प्लेक्स को निकाला जाए और अपने स्टूडेंट्स को ट्रेन किया जाए, इवन द प्रोफेसर दे हैव टू बी ट्रेंड, देयर शुड बी रिफ्रेशर कोर्स एंड इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड की पब्लिकेशन हो जाए, तो मेन स्ट्रीम में हम जा सकते हैं, इंटरनेशनल एक्सेप्टेंस हो सकता है। इसका जीता जागता उदाहरण आपके सामने मैं ही हूँ। नेपाल में रहकर मैंने काम किया और इंडिया में इतने सारे इसके एक्सेप्टेंस हैं, इंडोनेशिया में है, चाइना में है, US में है, ब्राजील और कई सारे देशों में ये पहुंच चुका है। तो हम कर सकते हैं, लेकिन आपकी बातों में सत्यता है कि अभी तक भी जो हमारे करिकुला है, विश्वविद्यालय के पाठ्यक्रम है और जो पाठ्य पुस्तक उन्होंने वहाँ रखा है, या तो पूरी तरह से वेस्टर्न कंटेंट वहाँ है और पूरा भावुकता बस किन्हीं लोगों ने मैंने देखा कि अपने यहाँ के रखना चाहिए, तो उन्होंने कूड़ा करकट को भी रख दिया है। मतलब एक जो होना चाहिए था स्टैंडर्ड मेंटेन, वो भी होना चाहिए। लेकिन अभी ये वृद्धि होता ही जा रहा है लोगों में। ये जो अवेयरनेस है ये हो रहा है। जैसे एक आदित्य कुमार शुक्ला हैं, उन्होंने देव संस्कृति यूनिवर्सिटी से मैं भी उनका सुपरवाइजर था। तो कम्युनिकेशन थ्योरी फ्रॉम योगा पर्सपेक्टिव, या योगा फिलोसॉफिकल कम्युनिकेशन थ्योरी उन्होंने उसमें काम किया है। कई और लोग वो भी काम कर रहे हैं। तो ये बढ़ने वाला है अभी।
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, we have one more question from Sumedha ma'am. I think, how can we relate Sadharanikaran theory with 3D worlds, sir? Please cite few examples. So this question.
It will be very interesting thing. In fact, in the Sadharanikaran model of communication, the research process has been in different stages. Yeah? First, it was conceptual research. Then it has to go to construct level. Then it has to go to variables, and finally, measurement and scaling of that variable should be there. So most research has been to the concept side first. Then by making this model visible, we have come to the construct aspect as well. How this this concept has been defined, given operational definition of a special state of communication, how this can be achieved through this and through that. The further steps should be identifying variables more clearly, and for that we will need laboratory. Yeah. In fact, through my writing, I had made this public a few years ago that I need a Sarideta lab for this, so that the communication process can be practiced. It can be experimented. So much of your answer would come after experimental research, but we can see, for the time being, we can see from our personal life experiences. So with this 3D, or even you say this digital revolution, now communication has been changed from the conventional mass communication technique. Okay, in conventional mass communication technique, the senders and receivers, they were distinctly identifiable, and the sender had power to control the process, all these things. But with the advent of this, let us say, social networking, you can see if you are connected, then who is the sender, who is the receiver. Okay, the how much attention a tweet from, let us say, Prime Minister of India would get, there is chance, I'm saying chance, okay, that a tweet from any random person, yeah, anyone sitting from this audience also could get. Many people have turned overnight superstar due to YouTube. Okay, their songs have become viral, all these things, and we can have groups there, we can have this interactivity, much enhanced interactivity. Yeah, you have been empowered in such a way that the reality is more closer to you. And in mass communication, there was a kind of impersonality there. Yeah, the people were not much engaged, but here there is engagement side is very high. So the concept of bhava and rasa becomes much more relevant as compared to televised show, or let us say movie in a theater, or reading the newspapers or books, as compared to that experiencing communication through let us say social networking, or digital media, or this 3D technique. All these are more closer to our moods and emotions. So I see the text called Natya Shastra has become more relevant as compared to, let us say, our society 50 years ago. Okay, it was very much relevant in ancient time. Now the relevance is revigorated, I think so.
Sir, from sixth semester, one student, Shreya Mrinal, she has a question. Sumedha ma'am, if you can.
Okay, please.
You are not audible. Shreya, you are not audible. Ma'am, if you can unmute.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, ma'am. A very warm greeting to you, sir, and I would like to show my gratitude that I'm getting a chance to converse with you right now. So, a very warm greeting to you.
Thank
Sir,
you.
my question is very much basic and it is from my native place. So, we are from Jharkhand and here the indigenous population is very much, it is huge. Okay, sir. Sadharanikaran is all about communication, how we can intel in communication, and we are the people of communication. So there are no scripts and there are no manuscripts about the indigenous languages. And communication is the way to understand the culture and tradition about any of the community. So, sir, how the basic barrier, there is a basic barrier between us and them because we cannot understand their language. So, how can Sadharanikaran or any modern would help in that way?
Okay.
Yes.
So constructing Sadharanikaran model of communication was a bit easier as compared to, let us say, theorizing communication practices of tribal people, for instance, in Jharkhand. Okay, because we got things written in Natya Shastra and Vakyapadya, and then we interpreted and theorized. Okay, constructed a model. But in that case, you need to depend on ethnographic studies, yeah, and let us say conversation, the oral tradition there. And to understand that oral tradition, you obviously need to understand their languages. So this sort of, let us say, initiative from those who want to study them, that is required. Yeah, obviously you can take help of the interpreters, yeah, but that may not be, let us say, very fruitful. So to understand any tribal society obviously requires ethnographic models, okay, even for communication, trying to understand their language, the context, okay, not only that, their practices, their rituals, yeah, their ceremonies, yeah, how they interact, how they, for instance, how they treat their space. So it will require observation technique, yeah. Sometimes what you observe may not be what actually they intend, okay. For that, this concept of ghar and bahir, yeah, home and outside, that also work. So to better understand, obviously we need to approach those societies. So what we can do in that case, what I would do, yeah, even in case of Nepal, there are many communities. In that case, you can take someone from that community, okay, and you can collaborate. So that will help you to understand their society, and the person from that society would be facilitated to understand the present context. Okay, so things have changed, and I think though few in number, people from tribal communities, they also have joined academic institutions. Some have done really good, and they are in let us say, in the position to teach others, yeah, to guide others. So maybe collaboration with such people, okay, would be an easier way to access the wealth of, let us say, information, wealth of knowledge there. Basic Swari data should be maintained by ourselves. If we consider ourselves as an outsider which want to be insider, then the basic, let us say, Swari data is trying to understand what they think, how they perceive, yeah, what are their etiquettes, what are their practices, yeah, and how to maintain that. And for sure, yeah, if you take some initiative from your side, the differences of languages, cultures, yeah, sometimes skin color, sometimes ethnic groups, yeah, all these things won't be barrier, because our society has been practicing communication since millennia in this way.
The session is really interesting and it will continue more and more. The students have more questions, but we can say that the time is too less. And now with a very heavy heart, I request that we need to end the session, and I request Sumedha ma'am to please give a vote of thanks to sir.
On behalf of Amity School of Communication, Ranchi, I extend my thank you to Nirmal sir for giving us time and explaining Sadharanikaran model in very simple words, like how can we use it in the digital era. This is something which we wanted to know. The students were also curious to know. So we learned how it can be applicable to podcasting, how it can be used for 3D, for tribal culture, and so on. And it was really interesting because the interaction was bilingual. The students who were hesitant in English, they asked in Hindi, and sir was like, he was also explaining very flawlessly, and he welcomed his opinion. So sir, thank you for sparing time and like clarifying the doubts of the basic Indian model of communication. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Indeed, it was a wonderful session. We are looking forward for more such sessions and more such interesting concepts, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for organizing these, welcoming these, and engaging in such a session. And we will certainly look forward for a future collaboration as well. Thank you. Shall I say goodbye now?
Goodbye, sir.
Okay, goodbye.